Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be ranking Season 1 of Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who, from worst to best. Now, I haven't seen Marco Polo, but I have seen the 30-minute cut down of Marco Polo, even though it's been a while. So I do feel confident enough to rank the whole season now that I've finished the Censorites and I've seen all of Season 1. Starting at the bottom of the list, we have 8 stories in Season 1. At the bottom is Marco Polo, just because it's missing, and I don't know if I can make it through 7 episodes of telesnaps. Now, Marco Polo is definitely not the weakest story of the season. I actually need to read the novel. I don't know if I have the novel. Flyattractor has sent me a lot of novels. I need to go through my novels and see if I have the novel. I'm not certain. The recon is fine, the 30-minute recon. I enjoyed it. The story is nice. It really is a tragedy that it's missing. And it's also surprising considering there's like 9 copies of it that got made. I'm surprised it hasn't turned up. I'm willing to bet a private collector has a copy of it somewhere, at least some of it. I liked it. I really need to hear the whole story, see the whole story. But I can't get through 7 episodes of recons, especially with episode 4 not even having telesnaps. I just don't want to have to go through that. So it kind of just falls at the bottom due to its missing status. I enjoyed the 30-minute cut down. The story was good. Number 7 on the list is The Edge of Destruction. Now, I love the ending because this is really the first time you see the Doctor really kind of being the kind old man when he admits to Barbara that she was right and that she saved them, and how he has that little pep talk with her at the end and even offers her his arm as they walk out. That's a beautiful ending. The story still feels too long, even just for a 2-parter, being confined to the TARDIS. I get very bored with it. I remember I actually watched part 1 years ago. And I never watched part 2 because it just didn't interest me. And then I finally got around to watching part 2 when I got the beginnings set that had the first 3 stories in it. I went ahead and watched it, and part 2 is better, and the ending does save it. But overall, the main reason I go back to rewatch it would be because I like the ending so much. The rest of the story is just meh. Number 6 is The Censorites, which I enjoyed. I don't know how well I will view it on a repeat viewing because it was kind of the wondering what happens next that kept me engaged with the story. I liked Susan and the Censorites. I think that's one of the best stories for Susan. She is written well. Carolyn always performs her well, but she's written well here. She actually has stuff to do. She's not just randomly tripping or whining or crying or screaming. She actually is useful to the story. So I really like how it treats her. I like the mask for the Censorites. I like kind of the infighting kind of subplot that still has a lot to do with the main plot with the Censorites. I enjoyed that. The set design for the ship and the little area they're at on the planet is really good. Hartnell is on fire in it. William Russell gets some nice scenes in it. I enjoy it. It's interesting to me that even though the Censorites is this low, I like it. Season 1 has a lot of stories that I think are good without being stellar. Like, they're good. They're watchably good and enjoyable without necessarily being classics or masterpieces. There's a lot of that in Season 1. It's a solid first season without being as good as Season 2, even though it doesn't have a couple of the misfires Season 2 does either. I like The Censorites. It was a good watch. Number 5 on the list is An Unearthly Child. Now, the very first episode of An Unearthly Child, the very first episode of Doctor Who, Part 1, is one of the best episodes of Doctor Who ever made. It is amazing. It is phenomenal. It is a masterpiece. It is essential Doctor Who. It does everything it needs to do to introduce you to exactly what Doctor Who is. It's a phenomenal episode. The other 3 episodes are not as good. They're fine. Now, unlike some people, I don't think they're terrible, but they're fine. They're not as good as episode 1, and you could just watch episode 1 of An Unearthly Child and skip straight to the Daleks. Honestly, you could. Like the original novel with David Whittaker basically does. But episodes 2, 3, and 4 are fine. I don't mind them. I enjoyed them when I watched them. Again, kind of like the Censorites. It's they're good. They're okay to good without being great. They're fine. I just don't know if I would introduce someone to Classic Who watching them. I'll put it that way. I might watch episode 1 and then skip on to Daleks. Number 4 on the list is the Daleks. I know some people might have it higher simply because it is, of course, an iconic story, being the first story with the Daleks. I like the Daleks. It drags, though it's 7 parts. And I know TV was paced slower back then. I grew up watching old TV. I was raised by my grandmother, so I grew up with Get Smart and Hogan's Heroes and Columbo and Perry Mason and a lot of other old shows. It still drags. 7 parts is too many. I mean, even if it had been 6 parts, it would have been much more manageable. That extra episode just drags and drags and drags. It's very telling that the Peter Cushing movie can tell the same story in a shorter amount of time, and it's fine. I mean, I'm not sure which one I like better between the Cushing movie, the Target novelization by David Whitaker, and the TV story. I think all 3 of them are great, and I think they're 3 marvelous ways to experience the same story. I enjoy all 3. But my least favorite would probably be the TV version, simply because it just drags. It drags. And the Dalek voices still aren't quite there yet. Again, it's their first story, but as someone who watched it way later, seeing it for the first time in the late 2000s, I think, the voices just sound weird to me compared to the normal voices I hear for the Daleks. Number 3 on the list is the Aztecs, which to me, I find the Aztecs a little overrated. I think it's good. I really like the guy playing the sacrifice guy, the same guy who came back to play Ash in Colony in Space. He's great. I love that Barbara gets a lot to do in this episode. I really feel Barbara is such a well-developed character. I absolutely love Barbara. She's one of the best female companions the show has ever had, one of the best companions the show has ever had. And just to see that they started with such a strong female lead in 1963 right out of the gate is very impressive for me, very progressive as well. I love that she really gets to shine in this. I love some humorous moments with Hartnell, like when he accidentally basically gets engaged. That's hilarious. I enjoy that. I, of course, love the speech between Barbara and the Doctor when they talk about changing history, how she wants to kind of change the Aztecs. And he's like, you can't change history, not one line. That's such a good speech. My favorite part of the episode. So the set design is really good for the Aztecs as well. It just doesn't come together as well for me as it does for some people. It's great. It's good, edging into great without being necessarily a masterpiece. I would recommend it to people, but it's not even my favorite historical of the first season. I think it's really good, but it just doesn't quite blow me away the way it does some people. Number 2 on the list is The Keys of Marinus. This is the one I probably say is the first truly great Doctor Who story. Looking at it chronologically, taking into account Marco Polo's circumstances. It's the first one where I'm like, this is essential Doctor Who. I mean, that's not fair. Let me rephrase that. An Unearthly Child episode 1 is essential Doctor Who. 2, 3, and 4 are not, but episode 1 is. And the Daleks is just because it's the first story of the Daleks. Keys of Marinus could be the first essential episode that's just because it's a great episode, or a great story, I should say. And it reminds me of The Key to Time and the fact that every episode is kind of its own thing with this overlying seasonal arc, which is more of a story arc here. I like the fact that each episode kind of has its own little thing going on. They're in a jungle, like a very deadly jungle on one, in the snow on another. Episode 5 is a murder mystery, like straight out of Perry Mason. With episode 6, of course, wrapping episode 5 up and then coming full circle back to where we were in episode 1. And then, of course, episode 2 having its bit with illusions and stuff going on. It's a nice mix of different stuff going on with them having to find the keys, tying it all together. I really enjoy Keys of Marinus. And it's another one of those stories that pulls off the Doctor not being there for an episode without it seeming odd. Because I know Hartnell's on holiday during one of the episodes at least. But it makes sense to the story and it never feels weird like it does sometimes in stories like, say, 10th Planet. Or there's another one I can't think of right off where his him not being there is noticeable and detrimental to the story. This is more like in the Time Meddler, where it makes sense when he's not there and it doesn't hamper the story at all. And number one on the list for me is Reign of Terror. I prefer Reign of Terror over the Aztecs. I really like Reign of Terror. It's very ironic I don't own Reign of Terror. I don't own Reign of Terror because Reign of Terror, at least the last time I watched it a few months ago, is available on YouTube. Like, all 6 episodes, including the 2 animated episodes, are on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and watch the Reign of Terror. Now, I don't know if it's still there or not, but I've watched the Reign of Terror, I think, twice now, and both times was on YouTube because it was there. So I've never gotten around to actually buying it. I think I have it on the wish list. I love the Reign of Terror. I like the setting with the French Revolution. I love them I like pure historicals when the TARDIS team just kind of gets caught up in events. And they're having to, basically find a way to get out of it. They're not necessarily there to change history and save the day. They're just trying to get out of events. It's basically the Caves of Androzani. Pure historicals, to me, are like the Caves of Androzani. Except for pure historicals, sometimes there are a side that's more good than the other sides. It can actually be a good side. But it's more just them being in events and trying to, extract themselves from the events and get back to the TARDIS. And there's a lot of that here. I enjoy the animation for episodes 4 and 5. I like that old animation style that Planet 55 did. And while not perfect here, I really like the facial likenesses, and I think episodes 4 and 5 look good. The backgrounds look really good. I enjoy the story. Hartnell gets some really fun moments, some very humorous moments in the story. I like when he gets to whack the guy with the shovel, but the fact he's there having to dig in the first place is because he opened his own mouth. Because he was talking to the guy, basically insulting him. The guy's like, "So where's your papers?" He's like, so he made him dig. That's funny. That's funny that the first Doctor's mouth got him in trouble. Yeah, I enjoy the Reign of Terror. That is one, like if somebody was asking for what's a good pure historical I should watch, I'd be Reign of Terror. I prefer it over the Aztecs. I prefer the Crusade also over the Aztecs. I wish the Crusade was complete. So that is my ranking for Season 1, from worst to best currently. Maybe we'll luck out and some Marco Polo episodes will turn up. That would make my day. I'd like to know what you think of my list and how you would rank Season 1 from worst to best. So comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out. And I am trying to grow the channel to 1,000 subscribers in 2023. That is my goal in Doctor Who's anniversary year. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me that way. There's a link to that down in the description below. That does help me keep the bills paid, especially lately with inflation and rent going through the roof. So I certainly appreciate if you would check out those tiers. My entry-level tier is only $2 a month. I want to give a shout-out to some of my top-tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It really does make a difference. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. Several stories that I own from this season were sent by subscribers, most recently the Censorites, which I was sent twice actually. Unknown 289 and Flyattractor both sent me copies. I appreciate both of them. They've been huge contributors to the channel and I'm very grateful to them. But that's down there. A link to my Amazon wish list is down there as well, with all sorts of little goodies and knickknacks I'm interested in. And most importantly, thank you for watching.